Today, the Supreme Court issued its final rulings for this term, and they dropped two big ones. One dealing with border policy, the other climate change. The Supreme Court sided with the Biden administration's decision to end a Trump-era policy known as Remain in Mexico. It said people seeking asylum in the U.S. had to wait in their home country while waiting for a hearing. Chief John Roberts wrote the majority opinion, and he says forcing the White House to keep the law in place violates the president's constitutional authority to conduct foreign policy. Now, the other big ruling limits the EPA's ability to regulate greenhouse gas emissions. Robert also wrote this opinion. He says the Congress has the right to set rules like that. A law professor says the decision could significantly limit the Biden administration's climate strategy.
Well, it would just put sideboards and sideguards as to what the Biden administration could do with its EPA. I don't think it would be the end of climate regulation.
The court issued all rulings for the current term. It won't return until October, when a new term will begin. Come October, of course, the court will look very different. Today, Justice Stephen Breyer officially retired. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson got sworn in. She serves as the first black woman to serve on our nation's highest court.
I am pleased to welcome Justice Jackson to the court and to our common calling.
The Senate confirmed Jackson's appointment back in April. Now to the big decision from the Supreme Court that has generated a lot of questions from you. The court ruled to overturn Roe v. Wade last week. It said the Constitution does not guarantee a right to an abortion. Congress tried to write abortion access into law before the ruling came down. It couldn't get past a filibuster. At the time, President Biden said he didn't support getting rid of the filibuster, but today he changed his stance.
And if the filibuster gets in the way, it's like voting rights. It should be, we provide an exception for this, require an exception to the filibuster for this action to deal with the Supreme Court decision.
The filibuster allows for unlimited debate on a bill. Now, follow me here with this one. Senators have to vote before they can vote. So 60 senators must support ending a filibuster before the actual bill they're talking about gets voted on. It's important to note, even if the filibuster does get suspended for abortion rights and a law gets passed, an appeal would likely follow. And since the Supreme Court just ruled on abortion access, it's now precedent. That means that federal courts should have to strike down laws codifying Roe versus Wade. Well, Roe versus Wade stood for nearly 50 years. The court ruled to overturn decades of precedent. That led to a big question from viewers. Has the court ever done something like this before? Our National Verify team breaks it down.
When the Supreme Court makes a ruling, it sets a precedent for lower courts and itself to follow. This is because the court adheres to the idea of stare decisis. That's Latin for to stand by things decided. Basically, the court doesn't like to keep relitigating cases, so existing decisions generally set the basis or precedent for future cases. When the justices handed down their ruling on Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health and then overturned Roe v. Wade, it prompted some people online to react to the decision by saying it reversed nearly 50 years of precedent, including several challenges that were heard in the Supreme Court. This left some people online wondering if overturning a precedent has ever happened before. So, let's verify. Has the Supreme Court ever overturned precedent before Dobbs? Our sources are the Congressional Research Service and past Supreme Court decisions. Every now and then, as society changes or a new argument is presented, the justices will overturn precedents or past decisions. For example, there was Gideon versus Wainwright in 1963, which reversed a decision from 21 years earlier where justices had decided states did not have to appoint an attorney for defendants who can't afford one. There was also the landmark Brown v. Board of Education ruling that overturned an 1896 decision that created the separate but equal policy. This led to the desegregation of schools in 1954. The decision in Brown was also cited by the majority of justices who ruled to overturn Roe as an example of why it's sometimes necessary to overturn past rulings or precedents. So, yes, the Supreme Court has overturned precedents before Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health.
All right, so in total, the Supreme Court has overturned precedent more than 100 times since 1851. Well, a lot of people on social media criticize the decision because they think that Justices Gorsuch, Coney Barrett, and Kavanaugh lied during their confirmation hearings. Well, each of them took questions about their stance on Roe v. Wade. People argue they said they would not overturn the decision. Now, here's what each of them actually said.
It is a precedent of the United States Supreme Court. It was reaffirmed in Casey in 1992 and in several other cases. So a good judge will consider it as precedent of the United States Supreme Court, worthy as treatment of precedent like any other.
One of the important things to keep in mind about Roe v. Wade is that it has been reaffirmed many times over the past 45 years, as you know.
I can't pre-commit or say, yes, I'm going in with some agenda. Roe versus Wade clearly held that the Constitution protected a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy.
So we can verify that none of them actually committed to upholding Roe v. Wade. They each acknowledge it has precedent, but never said they would or would not support it. Well, that same viral claim has pro-choice people pushing to impeach those justices. One of those viewers texted us about that issue. The Constitution gives Congress the power to decide how many justices sit on the Supreme Court. Congress has changed the number of justices 7 times. We've had as many as 10 and as few as 5. Congress has not changed how many justices sit on the court since 1869. We've had 9 justices ever since. After Amy Coney Barrett got sworn into the court, some lawmakers started calling for court packing. It's the idea to expand the court to shift the balance one way or another. After the Roe v. Wade decision, it's picking up traction once again.
I believe that President Biden should entertain expansion of the Supreme Court.
Well, right now, President Biden says he doesn't support that measure. If he changed his mind, he needs help from Congress to do it. They can, like a president, Congress can move to impeach a Supreme Court justice. The House has to pass articles of impeachment. Then the Senate must convict them. It has never happened in U.S. history. One justice in 1805 faced an impeachment trial, but the Senate acquitted him. You know, the past week gave everyone really a big reminder. The Supreme Court makes big differences in our daily lives. We forget about it sometimes because the justices don't speak publicly very often and they don't get caught up in the day-to-day of Washington, D.C. But each ruling can give us an impact on all of us.